Can I interact with the chat? How does that work?
Yeah, you can interact with the chat. Just have the chat open. Just make sure that you mute things. And with that,
Because
hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of Learn with Jason. Today on the show we have Joel Hooks, one of my good friends, the creator of Egghead.io, or the co-creator, I guess, of Egghead.io. A professional shit poster. What else?
I think they're quality, man. That's rough. My shit posting this whole time. I've been wondering what the kids are talking about.
Yes, sorry. I didn't realize that I was unintentionally insulting you.
These are supposed to be quality tweets, not shit posts.
I mean, they're quality to me.
Okay, well, that's good. You're my audience.
Will says that you are an advice guru. Chat, if you want to throw other job titles to Joel, I highly suggest doing that. Yeah, so Joel, for those of us who aren't familiar with your work, if you want to give just a little bit of a background.
That's a good question. So I've been working on Egghead for about 7 years. Before that, I was doing consulting and training and teaching workshops and that sort of thing. And prior to that, I was a 3D animator. So I shifted careers into software when I was in my mid-30s, about 35, and I've been doing it for almost a dozen years professionally. I tinkered with computers since I was very young, like TRS-80 style, doing turtle graphics and that sort of thing. So it's something that I've been around, but finally kind of figured out that I didn't want to be. I wanted to get in on the software bucks, to be honest. At the end of the day, which has been modestly successful. I enjoy the lifestyle of a software developer and really dig it. And I still love coding, probably more than most things. But Egghead is a bootstrap business. We didn't take any venture capital or anything, and the nature of that meant that I had to wear a bunch of hats.
Mm-hmm.
And we've distributed those hats, and I'm actually getting, I've had to be the lead developer and the lead marketer and the project manager and do all those things. Even the stuff that I don't enjoy doing per se, just have to do the work. Just fucking do it, which I actually have tattooed on my wrist as a kind of inspiration to get in there and do the thing that needs to be done. That's what that means to me. Doesn't mean it's not like a Nike playoff where I'm slam dunking anything. It just means that I get up and I do the work that needs to be done on a daily basis.
Yeah, I think and this is something that I've always appreciated about your kind of take on things is you bring a perspective that is kind of counter to what I've come to expect in tech tweets. Like, so many people in the tech industry are at venture-backed companies. I'm one of them. And so a lot of us are working at companies that have bottomless resources. We've got tons and tons of engineering capabilities. We can hire anybody we want. And you're coming from a very different standpoint where, the money that you have is money coming out of your pocket. And so how you've structured your business, how you've gone about hiring, how you've gone about delegation, like all those things are just so fascinating to think about. And I think that's something that is really, I want to dig into that a little bit today, because what we're talking about today is an app that is not going to be venture backed. It's not going to have a big budget, right? This is a thing that we have to
hope.
But so, I feel like this is the kind of thing that I want to talk to you about this because you are a demonstrated expert bootstrapper. You have, grown and seen a business flourish without having to take outside investment. And so for those of us who are looking to build apps that we think can make money, like a Secret Sandwich may not ever be something that actually gets pursued as a money-making venture. But an app like this, where you're creating events, you're letting people create accounts, you're letting people do things together, like you can extract value from that. You can charge membership fees or charge for upgrades or things, find ways to do integrations and actually make revenue off that. So as we're thinking about this app, I want to be thinking about it from that standpoint of look, I'm not going to have the budget to hire somebody to maintain this. I'm not going to have the budget to get someone to come in and do this the correct, forever scalable way. I am going to be doing this myself. So how do I build this in the way that lets me do it without eating all my time, without becoming a full-time job, without like detracting from my ability to live my life or see my friends and family. And, and so, yeah, like when you go about thinking through this sort of stuff, what are the questions that you're asking?
So what's funny is because you listed all those qualities, and to be honest, there's some measure of sacrifice, I think, to be able to do that in the terms of, like I talk a lot about like calm workplace, and it's something I'm really interested in. But there are many weeks where I was doing 80 hours a week, and I don't expect like people that collaborate, that we pay to collaborate with us to do the same. But that balance is always something that is tough, and like I seek it now, and and it's been able to taper it off. But like there's this level of when people are say you shouldn't hustle or you don't need to hustle. I actually don't buy into that completely, because I think at the end of the day, you have to do extra if you want to. I've worked 2 jobs for so many years of my life, and Egghead, even starting that, was 2 jobs, right? Like I had to, I was doing my day work and making money. We started to work on Egghead, transitioned off of a full-time job, but I was still like giving workshops and preparing workshops and doing training and doing light consulting to further that. And it was really it's quite intense process that just I don't know, like, and the dream is to kind of have the freedom and autonomy, but then at the end of the day you also are dealing with clients, and clients being a range of them, from your paying customers to the people that you serve that collaborate with you, to with us it's the instructors, and like you have to deal with all these people and kind of create a environment that fosters their success as well. I think money, like venture capital, would make things easier on some respects. It certainly makes things faster, right? Like the decision process is way different if you have $15 million. You can, like I can hire all the coolest cats in town, and we can like get to work on building stuff, and somebody can do R&D, and like you get this ability to do, but then they expect in return, right? Like it's a form of debt. It's like a big credit card bill that you are eventually going to have to pay back, or you can just quit too, right? Like this didn't work, so you're not putting it on the line. Where I've like there is no pillow or padding when you bootstrap. Usually there can be. It's really like I pasted the 30 by 500 link in the chat, because to me, like if you really want to understand, and if you want to build a business that's bootstrapped and build it on your terms, and increment in a solid way, Amy Hoy and Alex Hillman have laid out a repeatable path that if you're willing to do the work and follow the fucking recipe, because that's really hard for people a lot of times. They want to get in, and it's like, do you want to do this on rails, or do you want to do it like in some sort of willy-nilly fashion? And then at the end of the day, like VC allows that, right? Like you can you can explore and do things. You have the money, you have the capital, but if you're bootstrapping, you don't have access to that. And to me personally, what I like to do is follow a recipe, and follow like really good advice, and follow somebody, like if somebody's giving me good advice and I see that they've actually done the work. And Amy will talk about this a lot, is the like gurus that have never actually done the work and want to give you advice usually are giving you toxic advice. At best, bad advice, maybe good advice. You're rolling the dice there, but often toxic advice. So you really have to pay attention to, is this person giving me advice actually done the thing? And Amy and Alex both have. So I'll follow them and follow that path and do exactly what Amy tells me and follow her advice, and then see the results that have
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, like, that comment about following the recipe, I think is such an undervalued thing, right? Because we have a tendency to read something, and then we look at the information and we go, great, I'm going to do 80% of that. And then we're confused when it doesn't work. Like my mom does this all the time with actual recipes, where she'll find a recipe and she'll start baking, and then she'll go, oh, well, I don't want to put that much butter in it. And then she'll like substitute something else in. And then she's like, well, that's not a very good recipe. And I'm like, no, you didn't follow like that. You didn't cook the thing that you set out to cook. You started making shit up halfway through, and now you're bummed that you did a bad job. Like, and I think that's a very, it's an easy thing to forget, that like you stopped following the advice at some point, and then to call the advice bad.
Well, and not only that, and Yeah, it's like you're exactly right with the food analogy and recipes and actually cooking. And I've done a lot of that. Like I love to cook in my life, and that's why we're talking about sandwiches today. And I think it's like connection that we share. And it's like you sit down and you're going to cook some sort of a French meal and say, yeah, you know what, I don't really like carrots, celery, and onions, so I'm going to leave out the mirepoix from this recipe. And what you're going to end up with is bland, shitty food, right? Like
Yep.
You'll end up eating, but it's not going to be that's what it doesn't taste like restaurants. I have to go to restaurants to get that food. Somebody else has to serve it up for me because I can't get that. And it's like frankly, if you can't follow directions, you don't deserve good food.
Absolutely.
I think 80% is being generous with the amount that people will follow. Like at Egghead right now, we like Base Camp has been an inspiration to us. It's like I see what they do, and I love the books that they've written, and they're remote work and calm workplaces and bootstrapped and no VC. And DHH is always out there fighting for the little person, right? Like he's like out there fighting the good fight, and I just love what they do. And with no exception, the way they run projects is really interesting, and they use a process called Shape Up. They wrote a book. Ryan Singer wrote a book on their process that they use. And we're trying to adopt that. And at every stage of the process, there's always this desire to, when we were doing Agile, or when we were doing Scrum, or we can bring in this terminology, and we can pick a mix and bring that in. And it's so difficult to not like go off the rails, right? Like, and frankly, they gave us Ruby on Rails too, which is where my on the rails analogy comes from. But like we can do process on Rails. I can bootstrap a business on Rails, right? Like if I can follow directions and see somebody that's been successful and then literally follow what they do, you can make changes later. But like, it's like, we want to like, oh, I've read the thing. Now I'm going to try something. I'm going to try something new, or I'm going to apply my preferences to the thing that they're telling me to do. And it's your preferences that got you where you are today. So like, if you were going to follow a recipe, like let's follow a recipe. And that's what I'm good at anyway. I'm not an inventor. I'm a recipe follower. Like I don't invent, I follow recipes.
Well, and I think like, another side of that too, is I think a lot of people, they see that the stuff that really shakes things up are people who like innovate. And so you get it in your head that the way that you make a big splash or a big impact is by taking an existing set of rules and like iterating on it, right? Like you're going to make a change, you're going to switch something up, and all of that is like probably somewhat true, but you have to have done the thing to be able to remix the thing. Like you can't just step in and immediately start remixing if you don't know the source material, right? And I think that that's such a it's very and it's hard to teach, right? It's like it's a cliche, right? You only understand a cliche once you've lived the experience that makes a cliche real, and then you'll say the cliche and everybody's like yeah whatever, and then they'll live the experience and then they'll understand it and then they'll repeat it to everybody. And I feel like it's sort of like this, like if you just do the thing, and learn the thing and do it exactly the way you're told, not the way that you suspect it would work better or the way that you've heard that it might be different, but try it, then you get the results. You get to see the results and try something new. And from there, you can make adjustments. But you don't make adjustments before you've seen the result. Like you have to cook the recipe once and then you can change it. Like otherwise you're just making wild guesses at an unknown outcome. And that's chaos. Like that's why you're reading books in the first place, is because chaos sucks.
It can be fun. Like chaos is fun and interesting. It just depends on your goals, right? Like I enjoy a good measure of, layered entropy in my life. And like, it's exciting for my brain, and things are dinging all over the place, and I get notifications from 6 different sources, and it very, very much feels like a game. And you're absolutely right. Like iteration means you at least have to do something once and probably multiple times. And expertise is this, like layered knowledge over time. So, like to truly give a system a chance, like following the system, like for me is always going to be the place to start, even though like, and with me personally, the instinct is to like apply my preferences too. I fight that, like, oh, well, this is, I think this already. And my worldview says that this is true. So instead of following this advice, we're going to do the thing. And I fought for years with those instincts when I was doing 30 by 500 originally. Amy says that, but I know stuff too. I'm going to do what I know.
I got a smart brain. I should listen to my smart brain.
Yeah, my mom says I'm smart and handsome, so I'm gonna like forge ahead with what I know is right and true, and that instinct can often, it's like it's almost like a design thing, right? Like to me, I've been thinking a lot about design lately and how everything in our lives are like design is not just like the visual elements that people usually ascribe to design. If you're not designing or you're not following, like something that's been designed for you, like things happen, but they tend to happen on accident instead of on purpose. Like you have happy accidents, but if you're not designing, I always tell my kids do it on purpose when they're like, oh, I broke that, it was on accident. And I'm like, hey, maybe next time do it on purpose, where you like intentionally do the thing and don't break it. Like that's design, is doing it on purpose. And that's, like you can design in all sorts of ways, and you can design a business or like lifestyle design is a whole thing. And it's true. If you don't design it, if you don't take control, if you don't like follow like trodden paths you are exploring, and there's some elements to that, and good design often follows exploration, but like at the end of the day, you have to like stop and, kind of move forward. And for me, the recipes are really a great way to before I iterate, I'm going to do the recipes. And we're doing that like with Shape Up. We're taking that as input. We're going to follow it. And then we're going to layer on our experience on top of that and evolve it to match our needs. But first we're going to like kind of, follow it to the letter, I guess.
Yeah. I think, and like, that's a really good call that like, you're always, I had Dan Mall on a while back, and we were talking about design systems, and in the context of design systems, what he was saying is that, whenever you make any decision, whether it's a default decision, you let something happen, or you sit down and think about it and make a conscious choice, you're always designing something. But you're in one case, you kind of have emergent design, and there's a place for that. Like when you aren't sure what you want, you don't know what the outcome should be, you just need to kind of watch it and see what happens. Like that's when you should let things drift. You should see what happens with emergent design. But when you know what the outcome is, and you know what the thing you're doing, like, you know where you want to go. You should be intentionally designing that process. And if you haven't done it before, you should look to somebody who has intentionally designed that outcome before and follow their process exactly. And then if it doesn't work, you can make adjustments. Or if it gets you close but not all the way there, then you iterate and then you explore some more. But I think the mixing of intentional and emergent design is usually a recipe for sadness, in my experience, because you're pretending that you're doing something intentional, but really what you're doing is you're taking something intentional and undercutting most of the good lessons by calling audibles and introducing a bunch of unknowns, and that leaves you in a pretty rough spot.
Yeah, as you start adding variables, and honestly, like, so Egghead is Egghead.io. If you go there, it's a Rails app that is not on Rails. Like we deviated from Rails pretty quickly because I was like, oh, I'm a developer, I can do this. I don't like ERBs, I don't like this, I don't like that, but like I like this stuff. So we deviated, and now we have like a weird hybrid React app that pages load slow, and literally nobody on the team wants to even work on because it sucks so hard because we like jumped, and my personal technical decisions over the course of 7 years have created like this monstrosity. And now we, like we're looking at what do we want to build again, eggs on toast. And like that's where I'm at right now. It's like I'm exploring where the technology is and who, it's like, is this a Gatsby site? Is this a Next site? Is this, like some blazing cutting edge Chris Biscardi jam? I don't know. Like that's where, we're figuring that out, and like what are our next rails? But that's a design process too. And Sean Wang actually has one of my favorite descriptions of this, and I was trying to find the blog post, but he talks about his different modes, right? Like when he's in explorer mode, he's exploring, and he's just riffing and taking what comes and absorbing it. It's very fast, and the blog posts come quick, and then there's like these different modes in his like learning and evolution as a professional and programmer, where he switches modes and gets more into like a tighter sequence, right? Like here's the stuff that works. I'm going to really buckle down and figure out, what's the design, what's the recipe for this. And that to me is, that's pretty powerful. And you can't, like I think this comes up in test driven development a lot too, because people are like, oh, well, this doesn't allow me the freedom to do whatever. And it's like, no, you can still riff like we're about to do right here today. Like riff all you want. But the idea is after you're done riffing, you take that, set it to the side. That's a prototype. And now you write unit tests that'll prove out prove out the design that you riffed on, right? Like you can explore. Exploration is an important part of growth and just to enjoy yourself in life, really. Like I need to explore, need to try new things, and need to do weird projects and like have fun. But when it's really time to do the thing, like how are you going to do that? And putting it on Rails and following a proven system is a great way to do that, I think.
Absolutely. So with that, maybe we should switch over and start looking at some screens here. Before we do that, a quick shout out. Thank you, Azarem, for subscribing. I really appreciate that. And also, if you want to watch or if you want to read the show, we have live captioning being done by White Coat Captioning. It's at lwj.dev/live. lwj.dev/live. And that is being done by White Coat Captioning, and that's made possible by our sponsors, Netlify, Fauna, Sanity, and Auth0. So thank you all so much for help making the show more accessible to everybody. With that, let's switch over to the desktop view. And so what we're doing is this is actually part of a series that we've done, right? So Marissa Morby came on the show, and we worked through some UX workflows and prototypes. And we came up with this workflow here, which we'll go through in a little more depth, but this is kind of like what somebody does when they get inside of this app. Then Leslie Wara came on the show, and we did some actual design. And we took the UX workflows and we started thinking about how that would apply in an actual design context. And that started to lead us toward the mobile design here. And then I completely forgot that we also did an episode with Maggie where we created a logo, and this was super fun. And we came up with, well, Maggie came up with this amazing logo. Like, I love this so much. There's, it's just amazing. So this is the Secret Sandwich logo, right? Like, how much fun is that? And so we took all of that, combined it together, and ended up with this kind of event layout. And we weren't able to do the whole layout, and that's okay, because we're kind of just having fun with this. It's not, like I said, this isn't something that's going to make money. It's just a thing that we're doing because we made up a fun game together. And like all of us, so Joel, Christina, Joel's wife, Leslie, her husband Matt, and Marissa, my partner, we kind of have this escalating dinner party. We make different meals, and we kind of just go all out. It's a whole lot of fun. And we like riffed on this game, right? So it's like, hey, what if we made a game where we each drew somebody's name out of a hat, like Secret Santa, but then we had to make a sandwich that person would pick out of a lineup as being the one that is like their sandwich. So it's a way to combine things that we all love: sandwiches, hanging out with friends, silly games, and severely over-engineer it and turn it into an app.
I think we can keep our engineering to at least a modestly over-engineered.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think that would be, we'll go for instead of over-engineered, we'll go for just like engineered, I think. But so yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I haven't looked at any of this. You showed me some links, and like, I was asking, hey, what are we gonna do in this fun adventure that we're gonna have together? And I didn't. You were like, oh, we could just kind of wing it and kind of take it from, like, hey, here's some inputs and figure out what we do next. Mm-hmm. Which is very exciting and very much more on the side of chaos and exploring than being on Rails, I would say, in terms of how it relates to our discussion.
Yeah. Well, and I think, it's also like, it's kind of fun because we can take this list of goals and actually talk through it, because I think this will inform the architecture of the app. And I think that's actually really worth discussing, because like, I feel like one of the major pitfalls that I've seen on a lot of engineering teams is that they tend to choose the thing they know because they know it and not because it's the right tool for the job. And sometimes that gets so focused that it can be, you'll see somebody trying to shoehorn like, well, this is absolutely going to be a Gatsby app because we know Gatsby, and maybe Gatsby is not the right tool. But like, if you know Gatsby, you probably know React, and React in a lot of cases is the right tool depending on what flavor you're using. And if you know React, you kind of know JavaScript, so maybe you can just like scale that back entirely and build a like a basic template site that doesn't have a lot of front end complexity, because all you're doing is trying to get people to look at pictures on a screen. So there's a lot of ways that you can scale these decisions around and think about what you're trying to accomplish as opposed to what you know and how to make the goals fit inside of your current worldview. So that being said, sorry, I was like, did I ask a question just now? I didn't. So
I brought Whimsical up on my screen too because it's a little blurry on Zoom. So I'm just looking at the workflows and kind of exploring.
Yeah.
There.
And so what I zoomed into on my screen is what Marissa identified as being like our user stories or like our outcomes, right? And I think that one thing that I've always really liked about the way that Marissa approaches UX and research in general is she's always trying to think about what somebody's trying to do and doesn't really talk about implementation or solution. She's always just looking at like, this is the end state. And then trying to break that end state down into things that you can kind of true false evaluate. And I really, really think that's a valuable way to look at any project. And so she helped us come up with a group of users. And then based on those users, we came up with 8 outcomes. And so we are not going to get anywhere near actually building a working app today, but I think we'll be able to get a good foundation started and kind of think through like, how do we make sure that we're giving ourselves the right tools to accomplish these outcomes. So the first ones are around party hosts. So we want to make sure that party hosts can create events and invite their friends to those events. We also want to make sure that party hosts have some moderation for like photos because we want people to be able to upload. And so there's a photo uploader kind of persona here. And we want those photo uploaders to be able to post photos to an event. That could be the host or an attendee. And so they would go in and basically once the event is over, we can all collectively pool our photos and be able to share them together so that we have like an album. We also have the roles of like the participants, the sandwich makers and eaters. So sandwich makers need to be able to join an event. And the sandwich makers need to be able to draw a name, like be assigned to the person they're going to make a sandwich for.
Sandwichy.
The sandwichy. And then everybody who participates, a sandwich eater, is going to need to be able to add personal details. So the way that we were thinking about this game is that each person would be able to list like important stuff like their allergies, but then some general questions. And we thought that the more off the wall these were, the more fun the game would be. Because we don't want somebody to say, my favorite sandwich is a BLT, because that ruins the game. But if somebody says, like, you know, my favorite pop punk band is New Found Glory, like, what kind of sandwich would you make for somebody who loves New Found Glory? I don't know. Like, maybe you just put potato chips on a couple pieces of white bread, and you're like, there you go.
Mustard, too.
Yeah, exactly.
BLT is a good fucking sandwich, honestly.
It really is. And so that's kind of why we thought it would be more fun to ask indirect questions because, you know, if we're just listing our favorite sandwiches, the game is over very fast. But if we're being ridiculous and like I'm trying to sculpt a sandwich that reflects you, Joel, as a beautiful individual human soul, I'm probably going to make you something way more interesting than a BLT. And it might not taste very good, but I hope you'd pick it out of a lineup.
So it's like a little survey at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I think Marissa would, and I've worked with Marissa, so I kind of know this to be true. We would be approaching this from a jobs to be done perspective,
yes.
Right? Like we are describing the jobs that this application and this sandwich party need to do for the people that are involved with them, the outcomes that they want to achieve. How we get there is very much secondary to actually achieving the outcomes, right? Like, because there's an infinite ways that we could get there, but we want to make sure at all times that we are pursuing the outcomes that we want to achieve. So is that a summary that works? Yeah,
that is an excellent summary. So like thinking through this, I can see a few things that we're going to need. Like we need to be able to create events. So we're going to need some kind of a data storage mechanism. We need like invites. So we need some kind of a user management system. We would need some kind of a transactional email so that we can notify people, or I guess it doesn't have to be transactional email. It could be text messages. It could be whatever.
It could be all of them. So as it happens, and I don't know if you're interested in this, I've been not satisfied with my current event and ticketing provider, and have done a like full data model for a system that would be more like a ticket or event based system, which I don't think is perfect for this, but might be interesting to explore.
Mhm.
It's all about events and attendees and that sort of thing. So I can send you a link if that's interesting.
Yeah, let's definitely do that.
This is super secret Egghead stuff, so nobody
look at it.
don't fucking steal my work. This is important. I'm just kidding. It is super secret work, but not in that sense. Where's the place to send this?
If you want to throw it in Discord or something, I can grab it from there.
I could give everybody access, but I feel like that would be chaos.
Yeah, probably not. But if I have access, everybody will be able to see it.
So many chats. I literally have 3 chat windows on my screen right now with your face on them, Jason.
You hackers, you dirty hackers.
That's you.
I've seen what happens on your show when you give people access to the shared spaces, and it
full
is not
blown bedlam.
It was Sarah's where y'all had CSS the thing open and people were in there. They're helpful and chaotic all at the same time.
Yes, it's a lot. It's my favorite thing about this show is that because it's live, people can mess with us. And my second favorite thing about this show is that because the chat is not evil, they're usually like playfully trolling and not actively keeping us from doing the work, which I've always appreciated very much. Okay, cool. So this is an event data model, and it looks like we're in Rome. So
this is another approach, right? And honestly, you should probably start with jobs to be done if you're doing something and you're following that ethos of how do we do this and what's a repeatable process. That's a great place to start in the design process. I did that, and that's not present on this page, right? Like, so where I go, like after that, I have to really start thinking about the data and the structure and what kind of data are we dealing with. And that really, to me, speaks a lot in terms of how I'm going to like approach the solution, right? Like what I'm going to reach for. And honestly, like these days, my off the shelf, like my first instinct is almost always Gatsby.
Mm-hmm.
It replaced Create React App for me. I don't think that's necessarily appropriate for everything though. So, this was me going through and thinking about like what does a live event have, right? So you start at the top and you have a live event. Somebody's going to be the presenter. In this case, that's a host, right? But we have to think about, like, I'm thinking about this in like a generic sense, right? Like what does a generic event system have? There's going to be some sort of schedule. This has to occur someplace. And then, you know, like everything has activities, right? Like, so what is the schedule is like the meta, the broad macro schedule. And then like internal to that schedule, there's going to be activities, and that belongs to the event schedule. It has to occur somewhere. A lot of times this can be a URL or this can be a physical address. This is something that is going to happen someplace. This gets a little different when we break down here, because a live event package, right? Like this can be other stuff. It's like, if you've ever like got to a concert where they also offer a camping spot and you know, like festival style, right? Like where you can like add add-ons, or, you know, like you get access to the cooler tents, or I don't know, whatever. Like it can literally be anything, or, you know, like you purchase it and you get stuff with it. So it's like that can be activities or, you know, physical goods or other things that just come along with that. So that one's not necessarily relevant to this. And then we get into the purchases and kind of the e-commerce aspect of this too. And a purchase is interesting because it isn't necessarily a transaction, though it could be, because a purchase could be $0 in the sense of, you know, I'm committing to the sandwich event. So in effect, I'm purchasing that, which gives you like your ticket.
Well, and like there is a world where this could be, you know, depending on how seriously we took this, we could say that you do pay a ticket price, but that's going to go in on like a commercial kitchen where we can all have the space to cook and eat together.
And how do you manage that too? Because like you know, as the host, you don't need to be on the hook for that. And we're all friends, and we want to make sure that we kick in and that all the expenses are covered and you're not left holding the sandwich bag at the end of the day. Sorry.
And it's gonna be one of those like sad sandwich bags. It's just got like the foldy
the
flap.
oil,
it doesn't even
like
seal.
the mayo. It's just kind of seeping out. It's only mayo and chips. The post-punk mayo chip sandwich.
Oh Jesus.
And once you've made that purchase, or once you've made the commitment, right? Like you have to have a ticket.
Well, okay. I mean, check that one for the show. We've upset Chris. That is one job to be done of Learn with Jason accomplished. Okay. All right. So yeah, we'd be able to potentially have people like kick in to cover the cost of throwing a secret sandwich.
And regardless of the cost or what that means, you end up with a ticket. And a ticket's just, like that's your confirmation email. It's pretty obvious, right? Like your golden ticket lets you in the door. This is a casual event with friends, but like still, we're just trying to keep a head count. We need to know how much sandwich we need to cook. Like all that kind of stuff is valid. So the ticket really fits. And then this gets into what you're talking about, like what happens then, right? Like we want to make sure that we actually show up, that everybody's thinking about this. We might have, hey, there's some stuff due, like you need to fill out your survey, you need to do this. So that kicks off an event reminder sequence. So this is a sequence of what actually need, and this could be anything, and this can be, it talks about emails and SMSs as you scroll down. The sequence doesn't necessarily mean one specific thing. It means that some sort of system is going to go in the background to remind you that the thing is going to occur. Because this is an event that you have a ticket for, SMSs are really great, and a combination of email and SMSs make just fantastic for getting people to actually show up. Also, having people pay, honestly, even if this is like a friendly event, like having people kick in and pay is going to have them actually show up, right? Like if you are actually doing this and everybody wants to get in and have an actual good time, if it's a free event, like good luck, right? Like if they're, it's even if it's $5 or $10 a head, it doesn't, like whatever that cost that needs to go in, like having paid will make people show up more, and then reminding them and that sort of thing is
yeah. I mean, and like I think that's a good thing to call out too, like just in general. The challenge of building any type of community is that you want to build it before you charge for it, right? But at the same time, people value things that they've paid for, even if it's like $1. Like any type of investment makes something feel more important. And so like I've noticed that where like, I could just try to give away, whatever, and there are places for that. Like Discord is a great thing to be free. It would be super weird to charge somebody, $5 to, well, actually it's really not. Like, I guess that's a way that you create like an exclusive community.
I disagree.
Well, sorry. Yeah. As I was talking through that, I was like, well, no, I don't even think I agree with myself on that. But like there are situations that are weird and there are situations that aren't. But I think in general, like if you want someone to invest in something, the best way to do it is to get them to legitimately invest. And so I think that, with Secret Sandwich, it would be great if you could get someone to kind of pay ahead. Like you're going to kick in for a space, or we're going to go do a big ingredient list, and then everybody's going to make sandwiches together in my kitchen. And you're going to pay your $10 to cover ingredients or something, like whatever that is. Those types of things were, as you said, are just going to help make it feel more real, more concrete. Like it's for real happening. It's a real event with real value.
Yeah, for sure. And I've seen this a lot. Like we ran a photography business for years, and if you gave away free photography, no shows, like the more you charged, up to like Christina was being flown to location across the country and doing like $10,000 photo shoots. Those people respect you. They put you, like they are there. They're attentive. They follow. When you follow up, they answer. Free stuff. It's like there's value. And Patrick McKenzie, Patio 11 on the internets, is famous for his charge more mantra, and charging anything is charging more.
Yeah.
Good first step, and then ratcheting up. If you scroll up to the top of this page real quick, and then the thinking about there, just click that just to.
Oh, this is cool.
Actually, yeah. So this is where I was thinking about it when I was talking about jobs to be done, and where I'm thinking about that was the data model was my final product. This is more. This is how I think, and I use this particular tool for my notes right now. It kind of changes, and I've migrated off of like bullet journals and paper in the last couple of years because of Notion and Rome. And now I'm able to think in here, and I love it because if this is on my notebook, it'd be really hard to, like, I'd be holding it up right now and we'd all be having a miserable time seeing it. But this is like me, and it's funny because Sean's Learning Gears article is actually linked right there because it was part of this, right? Like, because I'm exploring and thinking about this stuff. And I dropped the link in chat earlier too, but it's that.
Wait, where am I?
Yeah, good luck. Here. You broke Rome.
No, I'm in. I'm good.
All right. And if you kind of keep we'll scroll down and just kind of we'll look at the thoughts and what are we thinking about with this? Why don't I just use an off-the-shelf solution? I have a lot of different reasons for that. That I'm not gonna rag on anybody for their current implementations because it's all good work. And then like this was another thing to me. Like I want to go out and I'm going to find like where are other people doing this kind of thing? Where are the prior art? So the examples down there, it's like Zoom does a really good job. Ticketmaster had their data model for events. Concert tickets, I don't know what that one was, like a weird just out of the Google search. Bands in Town, Eventbrite, and Tito. So these were like my inspiration in terms of how do you like actually model the data? Where can I don't want to invent this whole cloth. How do I put my data and my data model on Rails too? And I don't know, it's like how extensive do you need like this object oriented kind of data model to be is an interesting question when you start out. This is very geared towards this is going to be probably built in Rails as the back end, right? Like that's where I'm going. I haven't bought into the back end side of the modern Jamstack revolution as much yet. So I mean, like,
it could honestly. I'll make a confession. I've written 2 lines of Ruby in my entire career. So I do think I have Ruby installed on this machine, though. If you want to scaffold up a.
Oh my God, no, we're not going down that road. The thing about it is like the Rails isn't. It requires a certain level buy-in to actually get on Rails. It's like there's this is much you have to know, right? Like you have to like I don't know. It wouldn't be appropriate for this, and you have to think about your team too. Like it's so important if you're like you can build stuff on your own. And when I built Egghead originally, I wasn't really thinking about a team. I did use Rails and followed a tutorial, like line by line, followed a tutorial to build my business. So in that sense, I was on Rails. I had seen it before, but like, what's the future and where do I want to be and who is going to work on this and who do I want to contribute to this project is really an important question to ask at this point as well. And do, if this is one of my favorite books is called Apprenticeship Patterns, and one of my favorite chapter in that book is called Breakable Toys, and it's all Apprenticeship Patterns is fantastic if you code software for a living and you aspire to like be a crafter and push that. Like I think it's really a wonderful starting point. But the idea of a breakable toy is I can build this thing. It doesn't matter. I can explore, and if it breaks, it's it's like not the end of the world. It's mine. And that's how projects like this start out a lot of times. But at some point, you're also going to want to, bring other contributors in, I would assume, because here we are.
Is this the book?
That's the one.
Yeah, let me just throw a link in. Yeah, I'm very on board with that as a general sentiment. But yeah, so I think go ahead.
I don't know, like is this level of like what level of architecture would you start out with if you're approaching this? Like if we're talking about we're gonna throw down on some code and we want to get it bootstrapped if you were.
So I think like looking at what we're trying to do, knowing that we need some kind of data. So we need to think about what our backend's going to be. We need some kind of an invite management system. So that's transactional messaging. And then we also need some kind of an asset management and like processing pipeline. So a way for people to upload and then like hold a queue and moderate. So that would go into our back end. So we need some kind of like a way to get messages into the system, a way to get data out of the system, and some kind of like roles and permissioning. So I would start thinking about what systems have that all baked in?
Firebase,
Firebase is one of them.
Twilio.
Hasura is one of them. Twilio has both transactional email because they acquired SendGrid and SMS. Like we could do like socially distant secret sandwich over video using Twilio's like video calls.
Twilio's dope.
Twilio's super dope. If you're interested in more Twilio stuff, I've had Nathaniel Okenwa on the show a couple times, and he's awesome. And we've built some really fun stuff. So definitely go check that out. And I just had him on a little bit ago, and we did an episode on text to play games, which was super fun, where we set up like a text message to vote for a poll, and he's actually going to come back. We're going to finish that here pretty soon.
That just makes me think like Zork, but over text. Like you could build like a full, like a really fun like text based adventure game where you could just text and almost like D&D, and you could do it multiplayer too, like multiplayer asynchronous Dungeons and Dragons style adventures in like a Zork like world.
Oh, that'd be really wild. That is dang, that'd be super cool.
Like the monster appears, so an image shows up, and you could like just I don't know, like that would be fun. Like that would be I think like Secret Sandwich is interesting, almost like purely from an SMS, even over email, like as the primary like communication channel. Because that's like I think about it, I'm thinking about like the six of us and how we communicate, and it's in it's like in a group text, and like it's a lot of the communication and organization for any of our like our dinner events. That's where it happens. Not that we can't use email, but like to me, if you went SMS first and then like thought about email later, because email is kind of it's fine. Like transactional, like sending emails is like it's pretty straightforward. But you could almost eliminate that entirely from the initial design because of just the nature of what we're doing. Everybody has a phone. Everybody's going to get a text message. I think we can assume that. And everybody has their phone in their pocket right now. You probably have yours within 2 feet. Leslie probably has hers within 2 feet. Everybody that we would come to our sandwich party has that phone. I don't know what their relationship with emails is because that varies widely.
And even like taking that a step further, if you think about like how people actually participate in social events, there's a reasonably good chance that somebody would arrive to this party having not answered the questions. So by doing it over SMS, they'd be able to just sit at the table and answer them real quick to get the game started, as opposed to having to open up their email app and then like dodge through all the emails that they were supposed to ignore. I think that does kind of meet people where they are, which feels important. The
conversion rate on text messages is sky high, and this isn't a commercial project, but when you start like texting people, they get the message, and that's something like if you are developing an application, you have to be really cognizant of the privilege of being in somebody's pocket. I think that's important, and I think I've lost apps where they don't respect that. It's like what's the stupid bulk, you can buy gazebos and shit online, and they never stop emailing you for the rest of your life like 5 times a day. What's the name of this?
I have no idea.
Wayfair. That's what I'm trying to.
Gazebos before.
Wayfair is the only place I know that you can buy it. Like you can just go like hell yeah, prime me a gazebo. But like they don't and they're not necessarily. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm really concerned about my Bed Bath & Beyond 20% deal expiring tomorrow. They have sent me so many text messages.
Oh my God.
This. It's like over and over and over, and you'll unsubscribe and they still show up. And I use the 20% because like you can just get it in your but it's like all the time. I want an inflatable gazebo now, Chris. That sounds like a great idea.
I think that's actually just a bouncy house.
It is. It's fun. My house is fun. We have a lot of stuff.
Speaking of fun, if you follow Joel on Twitter, you'll notice that he just got a griddle, which that tweet started a fight in my house because I started ordering a griddle, and like it was it was like watching a slow motion scene because I think Marissa realized what I was doing as I was doing it. Yeah, her face dropped, just like dead eyes, and she was like, "I'm coming for you right now." And she just came over and like slapped my hand off the keyboard. She was like, "Absolutely not. You don't need that." I was like, "Yes, I do.
Oh, wait till you see it in action, Jason. I can literally have 20, 30, 50 people at my house and make kick-ass smash burgers where everybody's getting like a like the best smash burgers. We just got like, so we have a half of a cow that we ordered, so we got our fresh like grass-fed local meats that we're smashing into burgers. COVID really makes me sad too, friend.
I know. I'm like,
because we're 15 minutes away from each other, but I'm not able to share smash burgers with you.
I know. It's been such a bummer. We went to have a socially distanced lunch. So we like sat in the middle of a dog park, and we pissed off all the dog owners because we realized at the end that we were sitting at the place where you go to give your dog water. So we were like hogging this whole table and nobody could come over.
It was raining on us.
It was raining a little bit. And so we just sat outside and like ate our burgers far apart from each other in the rain. And like, it was great, but also like, oh, just, I'll be really happy when the pandemic is over. But yeah. Oh yeah. Let me see. I think Nikki just found the tweet. So let me pull this up real quick. This is the one. Yeah. Look at this griddle. I almost bought this griddle. I very rarely impulse buy things, but being friends with you, Joel, and being friends with Chris Biscardi has been like, I've made a lot of very expensive impulse purchases being friends with you.
You look good on camera though.
I mean, yeah, all of this, everything that's happening here is more or less a Joel Hooks, Chris Biscardi special. So, all right. So we should probably focus up. Hold on. Let me just send a little reminder here.
That's sandwich related, but
should we focus up? Should we write some code?
Yeah. Okay. So bringing this all back around, if we're thinking about I think the data model that you brought up is completely applicable here. I think that SMS as a primary driver would be probably, I'm very on board with that. That makes sense. And I think that so then we just get, so Twilio is kind of the default choice. If we're going to do SMS, Twilio is where we're going. So that's one architectural decision made. And so I think that from there, we just need to think about where do we want to store our data, and how do we want to get that data to the UI. So I think, the default for me is to go Jamstack with it. So some kind of a mostly static front end and a database that we communicate to through API endpoints or serverless functions.
The default for me is to start with a flat file of JavaScript for my data.
How would someone write to that? How would
we're not worried about writing, right? We eventually need to, right? Like the dynamic nature of a website brings in just an absolute metric shed ton of complexity, and I almost always start. So a JSON file on disk is a database, for one thing, right? So if I'm using Gatsby, and that's what I would use for this, I don't think there's any need to really explore beyond that, because Gatsby's great and it's fine and perfect for this particular project. So if I'm starting with a Gatsby file, I'm going to make a transformer eventually. I'm going to make a source for myself. I'm going to write a plugin. It's going to, I have a Gatsby plugin, Epic React source, right? That's something that I was working on yesterday. And what that does is I actually went to our API and had it pull. I just generated a bunch of JavaScript files, and I put that in a flat file on disk. Okay. And I can reference. And later, what's cool about this is I can just swap that out for a live source. But thinking about what does the sandwich party look like? What does the data look like? How is it structured? Is often one of the hardest questions to answer, and it speaks to the entire project, right? If you're thinking about it, the problem being that typing out long form JavaScript files is not the best and most interesting broadcast.
Well, I think what
here
might be,
friends, we're going to type out JSON files. Be sure to remember the quotes.
Yeah, I think, but I do think, let me actually close this and reopen it so it doesn't try to bring in a bunch of files. What I think will be interesting about this is thinking through our actual data structure. And I think we could do this in a way that's very Like you can just kind of think about it as like a regular thing. So like we need an event, we need some kind of a like, well, we just need like a user role, and that's going to need to have like host, attendee, and probably like a public in case you want to share your event publicly.
Is that what Auth0 is good at? I've never used Auth0.
So Auth0 can be really good at it. It gives you a like pretty straightforward way to add authentication through like social channels. So sign in with Google, sign in with whatever, as well as like custom use Auth0.
Do they have SMS authentication?
Great question. I don't know. Let's find out. So let's see if they have platform, single sign-on, multi-factor auth, passwordless. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, passwordless authentication with SMS is something that they absolutely have, and that would be really cool, actually.
Enter your phone to sign in or create an account. Okay. And then, can I just try this? Will it let me do it?
They have an article, like a whole tutorial article on this that I'll drop.
I just showed my whole phone number on screen. That was stupid. Well, don't text me, everybody.
You need to get a burner for this project.
I really do. Okay, so well, let's see what happens.
This looks like marketing. I said that, and the thing I sent has diagrams and architectural how-tos.
Okay, so let's take a look at how this actually works. So they enter a code, goes to the passwordless API, it's authenticated. Okay, yeah, so this is perfect. Like we basically, our app says enter your phone number. If you enter your phone number and you're in the database, then you just get like a login code. You enter that login code and you're in. That's pretty awesome. And
do they handle all your user information?
Well, so yeah, Auth0 will, yeah. So yeah, I don't know
so
how
like your profile or whatever is what I mean.
Yeah. So I think I have an Auth0 account. Let's look.
I bet you just made one if you don't.
Yeah.
Secret sandwich.
Yeah, whatever. Let's just create a tenant. Just call it personal. That's fine. So
this is an interesting choice for me. Like if I'm and at Egghead, I think about this a lot. Is service versus owning it, and I'm always going to use some sort of service, right? Whether it's like Heroku or AWS. I would not use Auth0 for Egghead. I would like. I think it looks like a great product. They have a lot of advantages. It's just so core. I would never use it for Egghead because I'm going to be working on this for decades. Secret Sandwich, on the other hand, feels, oh, look, it's just using Twilio.
It's just using Twilio. Does Twilio offer this?
I think, I mean, Twilio offers a lot of stuff.
Mobile passwordless SMS authentication. So here's just a straight up, we got to build an API for that. That might not make as much sense.
With Laravel, we'll all be learning today. The Authy API with Twilio, that looked interesting. Like, I mean, to me, Auth0 is purpose built, right? Like it solves these problems. We have strong community support. So there's people like that we have direct access to. It's like you can talk to, you have Twilio folks on, you have Auth0 folks that come on your show, right? Like, so it's interesting to me picking these because we can like incorporate their skills and expertise. We don't necessarily have to go in and use all these things. If we kind of narrow down what we think feels right and then expand on that, I think we're making pretty good progress.
Yeah.
As far as what we're talking about today.
Yeah, well, and this looks pretty cool, right? So it looks like we can definitely do this. I know for a fact that you can use Auth0 for user management because that's what I use for when I built the Gatsby store. This is Auth0. So this is an Auth0 login, and I store the connection between like the Shopify accounts and all that stuff in Auth0. So that's definitely something that can be done here. So yeah, I think this makes sense. And since it's integrated with Twilio, that's even better because we'll be building custom Twilio stuff, and we can just have the same service hooked up to our passwordless, presumably, so that it's all managed in one suite of services that are all connected together.
I also would say that like having email as the backup, and I think primarily when we're dealing with these things, email is the primary and SMS is the backup. So it's just kind of switching that, right? Like, so you will enter your email because if your phone number changes or whatever, we want to make sure that we are able to recover that sort of thing. But SMS first, I really love that for this particular, like as a user and a potential host, like that makes a lot of sense for me.
Well, and it makes sense, like thinking about it, it actually kind of makes sense for a lot of event driven stuff, like especially in-person events, because I mean, you're absolutely right. I don't check my email. Like it's not a thing that I look at to see if anything happened. I look at my phone.
I'll check it 2 hours later and see that I missed my notification.
Exactly.
I check email like at the beginning or mid morning and like towards the end of the day. It's not something that I'm paying attention to notification. Could you imagine trying to track email notifications? Like, could you imagine like the hell your life would be if you were to, like, it's just garbage. Where my phone is something that like I pay more attention to, though. I've been pretty good at like setting it in other rooms too, because it's whole can of worms. But like iMessage pops up on my computer, like it's built for this sort of thing, and as long as you aren't abusing it, like being some sort of shitheel growth hacking venture capped jerk with this thing, then you are in a pretty good shape.
Yeah,
you can abuse it. Like it's just like it's so it could be so prone to abuse, and then people are just going to say stop, and it's never going to come. Yeah, we're not in danger of that. It's just like I want to be cognizant of that, and it's something I'm sensitive to in any application, is how much you're communicating, and that you are communicating people with them and delivering value, and not just like trying to serve your own ends is really an important aspect of this. And this isn't a marketing app. I'm just kind of
in general though, right? Like I think that's such an important thing to consider when you're just kind of planning any app, is like what's going to make this easier to use? Like if you weren't the builder, if you were the user, how would you want to interact with this app? Like I would have, if I was thinking as the builder, I would have defaulted to email. I never would have considered SMS. And so, just that one step of thinking about, well, yeah, how are people actually going to interact with this? They're going to text their friends about having this thing, and then they're going to want to create a secret sandwich, and then they're going to have to move their whole friend group into email. No, that's a terrible idea. Just like text them a link that they put their phone number into, that then text them a couple questions, and now they exist in the system. Like that's a dope workflow.
Jason's pointing out that the magic of SMS passwordless connections is not a free service that Auth0 provides.
Okay, so we'll have to look at that, and what I think we can do is we can do a little more assessment on the actual wiring of all this, and figure out, like, is this something that's worth paying for? I'm gonna kind of say off the bat, probably not. Like we're gonna already have to pay for Twilio SMS, but I don't know that I want to add like.
If you didn't have a whole entire show around building shit on a whim, then perhaps like purchasing it would be it. But like to me, it's like, well, we can just roll our own SMS. Like we can use Twilio, because Twilio is actually going to cost you as well. It's pennies compared to
right,
tens or hundreds of dollars of potential cost with Auth0.
And the other the twist, especially on this show, is that the things that I build stay up as demos. So if I build something on a $5 a month container, like I either have to break that demo in the future, or I have to continue paying for it for the rest of the time. So I'm like fortunate in that I have a ton of DigitalOcean credit, because people use a referral link to get their DigitalOcean containers. So it kind of offsets, and the referral credits pay for the demos. But if that wasn't the case, I don't know that I would be able to do a lot of those demos without some kind of an explicit deal. So it will kind of impact, like, I'm sure that I could probably talk to Auth0, since they sponsored the show, and figure out a way to make this just work as a demo.
I'm sure they would go for it too, but
practically, like as a person building an app for myself, do I want to spend $10 a month for something that's kind of just to make me laugh? I don't know. Like, I do that for a lot of things, and I feel like that adds up fast.
I mean, also, like, to me, it's thinking about, you know, and like I'm thinking about this in the context of what you're doing here, like at the meta level, right? Like it's you could just use a service and sign this up and it's done. But then I'm looking at the article that they've written, and they have architecture diagrams and show like how these workflows occur, and they've already like planned a learn with Jason for you, right? Like you could just like instead you could, you know, like Twilio, I think we agree is a couple bucks a month at the most, and is a solid base, where Auth0 would get you to the finish line quicker, but you don't necessarily, that isn't necessarily the goal with this project. This has been,
Right.
you know, it's like an ongoing thing. It's bringing in multiple experts, and it's kind of the joy of building that goes into it. And there's a lot of value in constructing this sort of passwordless SMS authentication is an interesting exercise, just as, you know, like learning and growing as a developer. Like I'm actually interested in doing this now, and doing, you know, like the work that would go into creating something like that. What does the architecture look like? How would we use? And I would never not use Twilio. I don't even know where you'd go. Is there an alternative? There probably is, but they're not like.
That's a great question. I actually don't know if there's an alternative. I feel like
feels like
Twilio
Amazon probably
so
has.
thoroughly crushed this market that there was never like a need for a competitor. Like, it's sort of like Stripe, right? Like they're payment competitors, but like Stripe so thoroughly owned the developer payment processing market that it's kind of like it would feel foolish right now to try to enter that market. You know what I mean?
Unless you're Amazon, which they do indeed have a service.
I feel like there's an Amazon service for everything.
There
right?
is worldwide SMS. Amazon SNS is what it's called.
SNS?
Multi-factor authentication, one-time passwords.
What does the N stand for?
Notification system. I think it's
Oh.
Amazon notification system, something like Amazon simple notification service.
Naming things is hard.
So like looking at this looks like it might be a viable alternative to both Twilio and Auth0 for this particular purpose.
Yes.
And
you know, but so this is kind of an interesting thing, because it starts to address the like where you draw the line for trade-offs. So like on this end, it looks like the Amazon service is cheaper. I believe I actually, so 0.645 cents per message outbound. Twilio pricing, I think, is a little bit higher than that. Or actually, no, I think it's cheaper. Let's see. A little bit higher. So 0.75. So you could save a tiny bit of money, which would matter if you were super high volume. But the trade-off is that AWS is a little more time intensive to set up. It's going to be a little more time intensive to maintain. So the volume starts to be really important there, because you're going to spend more time keeping it running. And so like, and this is actually, I think what's interesting in discussions like this is also like, where are you drawing the line for the scope of this app? Because we are optimizing for low cost because it's just for fun and it's not serious, and it kind of doesn't matter if it breaks because it's just something that we want to do that makes us laugh. But if we were trying to do something where we wanted to have paying customers and it needed to be up, but we needed to minimize cost, it would absolutely make sense. You should pay Auth0 to solve that problem and maintain it for you. You should pay Twilio to handle that stuff and just make it just work so that you don't have to invest time. And I think that's, you know, there's some nuance to that discussion for sure.
AWS is, I mean, I haven't even loaded this service up, but my experience with any AWS service is it's not for the meek or faint of heart from the technical perspective. You're always going to get in there and you're setting up IAMs, and you're kind of dealing with you know their documentation, which it's like I don't even know how many services they have, but that it really is a trade-off, and that's why Auth0 can exist side by side. Like that's why Amazon doesn't crush just literally everything, is because of just kind of the dense nature of what you get into. I actually think this Twilio Authy two-factor authentication and passwordless login looks pretty cool.
Yeah, So I'm going to be honest. I've only heard the name Authy. I don't actually know what they do.
Well, it looks like it looks like a library that makes this kind of thing pretty easy. Well, easy is a loaded word, but
yeah. Two-factor authentication. Oh, and it's owned by Twilio.
Yes, this is Twilio.
Okay,
Twilio,
so this is
Twilio
I
OTP
understand.
is what I searched for Twilio OTP to get on this because that's the word I was missing was one-time password. It wasn't even in my vocabulary. I saw it in the chat, and then it came up again in Amazon stuff, and like that's the common thread. So OTP is what we're looking for.
Got it. Okay, and so then this kind of puts us in a space where we would still need to manage our users if we use this. So like Twilio would give us the ability to get the one-time passwords, but we would need a way to actually authenticate that, which we would probably still want something like Auth0 or some other solution for.
I'd probably Firebase that. Like honestly, like I think at that point, like Firebase has a lot of this already built, and that's just my first inclination. Maybe what would you use, chat? What would Chris Biscardi do?
What would Chris Biscardi do? That is always.
I don't know if you ask yourself that question sometimes, Jason, but I do.
That's 100%. I have a chat command. Like that's how much Chris we listen to here. So chat. Nikki recommended.
Smart folks are saying Firebase, but
Firebase. Yeah, magic.link got dropped, which it looks like. I've never heard of this, but this is kind of cool.
It is cool. I would never trust this. I would trust this site as far as I can throw it, based on like this. And this is so biased and maybe crappy of me. Feels like somebody's featured on Product Hunt. Feels like somebody's growth hacking. Feels like somebody has like really, everything about this screams I don't want to do business.
Endorsed by thought leaders. That is kind of a concerning headline. Like I don't mean that. I don't want to disparage anybody, but holy
like,
shit!
I'm not dissing anybody's work. And if you happen to watch this, if you've heard of code smells, this gives off VC smells to me, and does not feel long term. I don't know, and that's a personal bias. Magic announces $4 million of funding is the banner that they have at the top of it. I don't know if you saw that, but I didn't even see that until just now, and it's funny because just the nature of the site like screamed that to me. That Eric Elliott means the best. I would avoid that kind of talk, Jason. It's just not you, Jason, but Jason in the chat.
Brownie fed.
I'm not here to police your chat. Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. We should police the chat. They are unruly. Okay, so I think Firebase seems like the kind of a pretty solid solution. And good news, everybody. I have an episode coming up with David East from the Firebase team soon.
Yep.
Ish.
I mean, y'all should work on Secret Sandwich if you can.
I'll talk to him. I think he had a plan, but I'll ask him if he wants to do this because it could actually be really fun. One thing that I think is funny is like this project provides such a great, like, we don't have an idea. Hey, do you want to work on this dumb app? And we can just, put a bunch of fun and silly ideas into it. And I think that'll be a lot of fun. But yeah, you should, if you are interested in learning about Firebase, this is going to be a good episode. So definitely do add that to your calendar. And while you're at it, just add the whole Learn with Jason schedule to your calendar. That'll put it in Google Calendar so you can see them. But yeah, so let's see. Boy, we're actually coming up on time here. We got about 14 minutes left. So I think like from my standpoint, this is what I wanted to get out of this call actually, is I wanted to talk through all the various things that you're going to trade off when you start looking at like, we've got to use third-party providers. We've got to balance how much time we're going to put into it. How much do we want to spend on it? What should we even be asking in the first place? And like, how do we connect dots between here's a detailed design from UX and we've got the research, we've got some mock-ups. What are we doing to draw the connections between those points and like what actually goes on the screen? How do we convert these ideas into code? And I think, just the sheer number of questions that we've asked and talked through shows that the first step shouldn't be, well, let's open up an editor and start writing code. there's so many questions to ask before that.
And it's fine to do that. I mean, agree. And it's like, that comes with experience too, right? Like, so we're drawing on our mutual experience, the experience of your fine chat, and like what tools are available and what's right. And everything has trade-offs. The famous saying is there's no silver bullets, and it's absolutely true. There's no perfect solution. Everything is going to have, your give and take, whether it's cost or time or longevity or VC smells. Everything has, some measure of cost and reward. Like for me, like Gatsby on Netlify, using Twilio and Authy and Firebase and Firestore for data, like that is a really good start for a proof of concept. That might change, like scale might come into. I think all those services will actually scale and will be here for at least a decade. That's important to me, right? Like, how long do we want this? Like, how long are we going to be serving up secret sandwiches? 5 years is probably a good line. So how does this last for 5 years? Magic.link, as much as that, like they are providing a real solution to a real problem, will they be here in 5 years? I don't know.
It's a valid question, right? Like, they're brand new. We haven't seen a lot from them. So if we know that we want 5 years, maybe that's too risky a bet.
It is, and you're always you are like you are putting your time and money on the line, and how hard is it going to be to change too? And
that's a big one.
Speaking of Chris Biscardi, he has a wonderful podcast, and then a little summary that he wrote about designing for deletion or planning for deletion when you code.
Which is it? I think if I just search deletion, is that going to work? There it is. This is such a good article.
The podcast episode is great too, and this comes towards the end of it. I would highly recommend. They're talking about Gatsby and Chris's experience on the Gatsby team and building that up, and can't recommend it.
Is this the podcast?
Yes, that's the episode.
Okay.
They're talking about several different things in there, but that was just like, that really stuck with me, and I know it's not like Chris didn't invent this idea, but it was the first time I'd really heard of it. And it's this idea, if you're building a system and you can't delete it, then you are going to be stuck with it for a long time. And I've experienced this personally with Egghead, and where like it comes in for us is our subscription models and the way we originally approached how we dealt with subscriptions through Stripe. Now Stripe has all sorts of, they just announced something this week, like this billing dashboard that's like, shit, that would
I don't know if you played with it, but it's so cool.
Like, why I would just use that for my business. I would, like, Egghead is probably going to move and just hopefully use that for our business, because like there is so much code devoted to that in our application. It's all, we use like so in Rails, there's something called a before hook. So it's a before save hook. Okay. And this is like an automatic callback that happens before a thing saves to the database. They are the most dangerous, insidious, shitty, bad decision that you can ever make for a core system that goes as far away from, if you can't delete code, then you're stuck with it. Or it makes that like I could just put that sticker smack across the system, because we've narrowed it down to where it's one method, just like, and it calls out to like, it's just the spider tendrils that are like some sort of horror movie where, like it looks like mold growing, and it's just like ivy plants, just like little hooks in the entire code base. And this is a decision I made like 3 days into building Egghead from the tutorial that I mentioned. I made this one decision, 7 years, and at least I feel like probably like $250,000 of effort in dealing with this decision. And as you mentioned early, that isn't coming from my coffers of VC money. That's like straight out of my pocket. And you like, as a consultant, I never I understood it, but you mentioned costs, and if you're working for like a major telecom, they're like, could you please stop talking about costs, because we really don't give a shit. When you're bootstrapping, and
like
you're
the saddest sentence, but I totally get it. But oh my god, yeah, those ones always bum me out.
When it switches, and you're like, if you're doing your own bootstrap thing, and you start like paying for design, you start paying for UX, you start paying for research, you start paying for your shitty poor decisions that you made on day 3. Like it's just a weird sense, right? Like it's like, and it's like when I hire somebody, it's like, okay, well, here's, I'm writing a check and it's coming, and I'm bringing that to you. And so, like that experience is pretty visceral. And like that's why this article from Chris really struck me. I was like, if we could delete that code, like if I could just go in there and be like, yeah, we can just kill that. We can like spend 6 weeks and we'll delete it. Instead, I spent 6 months this year just trying to wrangle it and make it to where we can understand it, so we could even talk about deleting it.
Yeah, well, and I think so. Candy Cane asked in the chat, like, why is it so hard to remove that single hook? And I think that this is one of those things that's really sneaky about code is when you write code, if you're not thinking about containment, if you're not thinking about like API surfaces, then you end up where, you know, like you said, it sneaks its way into other parts of the code base, and then you can't change one thing. You have to change everything. Because there's, you know, it's like, all right, so to remove that one hook, you could go in and you could just delete that hook. But, and I'm not talking about your code base specifically. I'm just thinking about like where I've seen this go bad is, you know, you go in and you're like, all right, well, this function is the problem. Well, I can't delete this function because the way that we wrote this function was bad to begin with. And this system over here uses the wrong use of that function and takes advantage of a way that it breaks to get a certain outcome. And then this system over here wrote a proxy around this function that if we delete, we're going to break their whole system, and they have to re-architect a whole bunch of stuff to make that work. And so now it's not like, oh, we can just fix it. It's like, well, we're going to break the whole system. We gotta basically ground up rewrite because multiple systems are dependent on this one bad decision that we made. And it sounds like that's kind of the situation that you find yourself in. And it's a story that I've seen, like that was true at IBM. That's true it was true at every company I've ever worked at.
I've seen it, and it's like the nature of legacy code, and and it's, you said architect, right? And if you think about it this way, it's a load bearing wall, right? Like you can't just go in, and I can't go downstairs and bash out a wall in my house, and willy nilly and not worry about it. I have to. That wall is carrying the entire weight of the entire structure of the place that I live, and to properly do that, we're going to have to engineer, we're going to have to manufacture a beam, we're going to have to take it out and put in supports while we take it out, we're going to have to like take out the original structure, and we're going to have to move it in while we maintain the structural integrity of the entire thing, while we all have to eat while this business still goes. I can't go in and just like knock out the load bearing wall of our subscription infrastructure, because that right. Like what that would mean is tomorrow, you know, like that's we're messing with people's money at that point. And we have, you know, like we have like 1,500 unit tests in Egghead, and the vast majority of them are dealing with our subscription infrastructure. Like we don't write a bunch of superfluous tests. We test what's important, and what's important is dealing with people's money, both our instructors and the member audience that are paying us and keeping us alive. We have to respect that. So like it's just not. And once you've done that, when you make naive decisions, because you don't really know, because we're all just learning and we're all just kind of guessing, right? Like we're doing educated guessing as we go along. When we do that, it kind of like you have to live with it. It's viral decisions, right? Like it just creeps through the entire code base, and it wasn't intentional. It wasn't designed, or it was designed. It was just maybe, you know, it's even a bad design sometimes, but it definitely wasn't designed for deletion. Which our new, when we get this, when we put it in the new, you know, our new steel beam to hold up the whole thing, it's going to be designed for deletion, modular to where we could move off a I don't think I'd ever in my life move off a Stripe, because I love them so much. And you know, like it's going to be a different system, and it's kind of a live and learn. It's an expensive mistake, and it's, you know, like one that I get to pay for and deal with and have to adjust for. You know, and it doesn't, you know, I'm not going to say it doesn't make me sad sometimes, because ouch, I sure would rather have a vacation house than to replace a subscription
for real
model.
For real.
Like, and it's literally what you're talking about, right? Like if you think about it that way, like this is a pretty nice cabin on acreage.
Yeah. No, but it is kind of, you know, and these are the things that you can't predict the future. You can't predict how something is going to evolve, or like, you know, we could build Secret Sandwich and we could find out that this is actually super popular, and you know, we might both quit our jobs and start Secret Sandwich Incorporated, and like this is the thing that we do, and who the hell knew that this would ever get this big? And the decisions that we would make in that future are very different than the decisions that we might make right now, thinking this is going to be a silly hobby project. So
sandwich versus like, oh man, these sandwiches literally mean me eating or not.
Yeah. And so thinking about that, like we shouldn't try to predict the future and say, well, this is just a hobby project. Let's just spaghetti code the hell out of it and not worry about it. But we also shouldn't say, well, maybe someday this will need to support millions of concurrent users and we should like architect the hell out of it. So instead, we can say, hey, we don't know what's going to happen with this. We know we don't want to spend a lot of time. Let's build good walls around the systems so that if we need to swap one out, we can. And that way, at least, you know, we're optimizing for deletion. If we shift it in the future and we want to sunset something and like, hey, let's just no users, you just go in and everybody fills out their stuff on a page. We just delete the whole auth system and the rest of the app doesn't break. We need to scale it up. Cool. Let's switch over to something enterprisey. We'll drop in Okta. And now we've got like enterprise scale or whatever. And you know, we want to add like a super database. Like, cool, let's hire an AWS architect and let's get a whole bunch of AWS services architected so this thing will handle the apocalypse. Like, but all of those decisions, if we build the site in such a way that it's separated by clean boundaries, and when we're thoughtful about that, then it can be a hobby forever, and that won't matter, and it'll be easy to maintain. Or it can scale infinitely, and we can hot swap. You know, this could be the app of Theseus, where we've replaced every part while it was running.
The app of Theseus. I like it. So I was thinking this was I can't remember where. Like I was kind of thinking about business and bootstrapping, and there's this danger of turning your business into a really fucking expensive hobby.
Yes.
That can happen pretty quick, right? Like you know, like if you're not designing it and you're just kind of going about it and following whims, it is pretty, and I've been so guilty of this on many occasions. It's turning your, you know, it's a business, you're making money, but what you've done is created a very expensive hobby. And you know, like I try to be cognizant of that, and I really, you know, it's like this sort of thing. It's not that I don't like, I get the idea of separation of concerns and architecting applications and the idea of you know, like planning to delete and like I understand it, but in the moment, like you can make things and things will sneak up on you too, and then all of a sudden it just springs up. It's like, oh, ha ha, ha, you made a, you know, like you chose wrong. The Happy Gilmore is what always, the price is wrong. That always like hops in my head when I say that. But you know, like Happy Gilmore standing over you with his golf club, laughing at you because you made a bad decision in your past as a developer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like I could talk about this all day, right? But unfortunately, we're out of time. So so chat, I want you to go follow Joel on Twitter. Go check out Egghead. There are tons and tons and tons of useful learning resources there. I've made a few. If you want to look at them, I have a short link to it, I think. I hope that link works. And that's a link to just my stuff. And, you know, definitely stay tuned for like, go ahead.
I'm thinking experience my shame. I'm kidding. It's wonderful. We have so much good content on the site. You'll see what I'm talking about and why we're going to like re-engineer it. We're currently working on the idea of paths, because right now you're dropped into Egghead, and I lovingly, if you scroll back up, I lovingly refer to current status of Egghead as a slot machine. If you know what you're looking for, the content is very good. We're going to like put walls around that and help people more. That's kind of our next phase of evolution. But there is so much, several hundred amazing courses and across the bounds of web development, and they're really quite awesome.
It really is.
Jason and Chris Biscardi and Jason Brown and all sorts of chat luminaries here at Learn with Jason. Absolutely.
And so with that, we'll do one more quick shout out to the sponsors. Whitecoat Captioning, thank you so much for doing the live captions. That is made possible by Auth0, Sanity, Fauna, and Netlify. So thank you very much to these sponsors. Make sure you check the schedule. We've got a lot of really fun stuff coming up. So go look through that calendar, see the guests coming up, mark your calendar, and come join in with us. Joel, thank you so much for coming on. This was an absolute blast. I feel like this was super useful.
I made one boop drop.
One boop drop. Yeah, I know. But it's all right. So yeah, thanks y'all. Chat, stay tuned. We're gonna raid. And Joel, thank you very much. We will see y'all next time.
Thanks, Jason. See y'all.